Oh, whatto chaps, I'm MagicalMike, and recently I played through Halo Reach for the first few times. I've not played a whole lot of Halo. I had the first two games on the original Xbox, and I've never owned any of the subsequent consoles, so I've never played anything that came out after those first two. So, when I heard that the Master Chief Collection was coming to PC, I was pretty excited about it. Reach was the first one to be released on Steam, and one that I wasn't too excited for in particular because honestly I was most looking forward to having the nostalgia of 1 and 2, but since it's the prequel to those, it makes sense to have it come first. And luckily, I was pleasantly surprised with it all. Or was I? You know, I'm not actually sure if that's fair to say. I mean, I was expecting Halo gameplay, which I know is solid and fun from memory. I wasn't expecting anything vastly different to that, so I'm not entirely sure why I would be surprised. Maybe it's because not many people talk about Reach as fondly as they do for the first three games. Either way, it was fun and I'd like to talk about the campaign mostly here. Although, well, to touch on multiplayer very briefly, I played a bit. I like Halo multiplayer. Reach has its problems according to the community, but I don't take it very seriously enough to really care about any of those issues with maps, weapons, bloom, game types and all of that stuff. I'm just not very good at it. So my experience mainly is being headshot and killed before I can even find where I'm being shot from. It's years of Halo experience from consoles translating to PC that I just can't compete with, unless I put a ton of time into it, but losing a lot wasn't quite what I wanted to do, so single player and co-op focus for me. So the single player campaign is what I jumped into first. Well, co-op with my friend Kez, on Legendary of course, because learning curves are fun. We basically finished it in a couple of sessions with me struggling a lot to learn how Halo works again. Turns out I'm pretty bad at the arcade style of it, and I would die an absolute ton. Also, it turns out that there's some pretty terrible latency problems with co-op in the MCC, which results in the person or people who aren't hosting getting a bunch of very noticeable lag. I mean, I would jump or try to change my strafe direction and the key press wouldn't register for a full second, which is hugely detrimental, but it didn't stop us ultimately. Still worth mentioning though. The only other issue I had with Reach is the sound, which is hard to explain, but cutscenes and some gameplay sounds would also lag and break up a ton, becoming really crackly and distorted, which totally ruined all of the cutscenes in the game for me, which was a bit of a shame, but Halo 1 didn't continue that trend and the devs are aware of the problem. So, I had a lot of fun playing together, and then, to learn how to get better, I had a lot of fun playing it all again solo, without Kez as a crutch or a mobile checkpoint. And I'd like to believe that I did indeed improve a lot during that second playthrough. But wait, there's more, because I managed to get at least 5 playthroughs out of Reach, each one teaching me more and more techniques and tricks to help me manipulate the game in new ways. Beating the game on Legendary in under 3 hours for the Keep Your Foot on the Pedregas achievement was excellent. It turns out that there's a very good number of tricks to learn and exploit, and there's a good number of resources online to learn from. Pedregas himself made a real, nicely detailed tutorial on how to speedrun the whole thing, with well explained instructions and options, backup strats, and easier strats to pull off and learn, so they made the whole process way more accessible than I thought it would be. So thanks for that. And while it was fun to play the game as intended, killing all the enemies in the way and all of that stuff, it was also just as fun to learn how to go fast. Stealing the Falcon in the first level and getting pushed through geometry by a Covenant spirit, skipping a ton of Exodus by exploiting the movement options that the jetpack provides, doing Nightfall in like 6 minutes by using a forklift to clip through a gate and despawn all the ending enemies, stealing a Banshee in New Alexandria and flying it through the inside of the hospital building, and a bunch of cool concussion rifle jumps that you can use in the Pillar of Autumn to despawn tough fights, and get on top of the mass cannon way earlier than intended. Reach is a game that has a number of really fun tricks like that aren't all that hard to pull off, and they all feel really rewarding to do. Learning to go fast also helps with getting the par scores too, which was most of another playthrough for me, combining the speedrun skills and a whole other level of efficient combat techniques to hit those scores. The package is a really tough level to get that par score on. 65,000 points is huge, so you really have to get good at knowing where the phantoms spawn so you can blast them quickly with rockets, collected fuel rods, and a stolen wraith really quick. But once you get it, I was satisfied. There were a bunch of random Easter egg achievements to get too, or random challenges to get, like not driving in the first level, or finding some lost marines on Exodus. Just a bunch of weird little things to go and discover like that added a lot more enjoyable playtime to the game for me. And then, of course, there's Lasso. For the uninitiated, that's Legendary difficulty with all skulls on. In other words, the hardest difficulty with a bunch of extra modifiers to make it even harder. And for those that do know what Lasso is, yeah, it is hard. But fun, and it felt pretty damn good to beat it together. Having your shields only recharge on a melee hit is pretty rough, and with enemies all being higher rank and doing more damage, it's not an easy thing to get a melee hit in from time to time. They also chuck grenades constantly thanks to Catch, you have absolutely no HUD thanks to the blind skull, you only find half the ammo you normally would, dying resets the whole level, or if one person dies and you're in co-op, then it resets to a checkpoint, which wouldn't normally happen. It's frustrating when one person is laggy too. Sorry, Kez. Enemies are extremely evasive when you throw grenades at them, and thanks to the tilt skull, you'll never get through an elite's shields unless you're packing plasma weapons. So that holy plasma pistol / DMR combo becomes even more important here. Oh, and by the way, I really loved the DMR. What a great weapon. Opposed to the awful assault rifle. Wow, what a waste of time those are. Yeah, DMR's king. So, starting winter contingency with just an AR is pretty grim. But at least Noble Team can help you out, and speaking of them, I guess the story of Reach was just about okay, I suppose. The team is full of cliché characters, and knowing what's going to happen to them from the get-go really devalues a lot of the moments. But, oh well. Nightfall Lasso was initially hard as hell because we did the trick wrong to skip the end gate and somehow spawned all of the enemies. Kez and I spent like 2 hours trying to fight through those before we restarted and figured out that we got something wrong, so it turned out to be absolute cake. Again, another like 6-minute run through that, even in Lasso. Tip of the spear was mostly vehicles, which you can abuse the range and infinite ammo on. Getting past the first barrage of hell wasn't particularly easy, but after that, the only thing that really messes up a lot were a couple of the hunters and a wraith, so not bad. I thought that Long Night of Solace was going to be absolutely impossible thanks to the already difficult space sections, but it turns out that the Sabre is more resistant to the plasma from the Banshees. Inside the Corvette was a rough time though, but overall not so bad once we figured out we could block a large spawn of enemies in a corridor and blow them all up before they even had a chance to do anything. New Alexandria was cheesed by activating music cues, and the Falcon sections weren't bad at all. Easy stuff, thanks to those Easter egg playthroughs. The package was mostly fine too, with only a few fights that had to be done on foot. The whole tank section was pretty easy overall. And Pillar of Autumn was made a ton easier by carrying a concussion rifle to the end of the mission to skip up to the mass driver and take out all the Phantom carrier ships before they could drop off all their enemy waves. Add in a handy skip over a wall by using some co-op head bouncing to despawn a nasty set of drones in a cave, and a hop into some rafters to despawn the 2 hunters, and the level was mostly skipped even in Lasso. Nice. Granted, I did just make that sound relatively easy, but any one elite, a couple of jackals, grunts, or a skirmisher could easily wipe us out in less than a second, so no, it really wasn't very easy at all. It's got to be up there for me as one of the hardest achievements I've ever managed to get in any game I've ever played, and it was a ton of fun too, so yeah, awesome. So that's Halo Reach. Quite a short campaign all round, but with the amount of playthroughs I got out of it for a completionist run, I'm pretty happy about it, and hey, there's plenty more to come with all the other Halo games. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.